I'm Billy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Billy.
I tried to get a little security blanket by having a friend move the clock over where I could see it. It ain't moved a second. It was 5 minutes to 7. We come in here, it's still 5 minutes to 7. So I may run over. I don't know. So, but anyway, I came down here earlier today. My wife did her last therapy, had a knee replacement 5 weeks ago. I think it is today. And I've been the caretaker, and I get to thinking I'm a martyr. She's the one that had the knee surgery. My previous wife said that if I had a wreck, it was my fault, and she was laying in the road, and blood was squirting out of her heart. Everyone that came to the scene would be saying, "It's okay, Billy, it wasn't your fault." Oh well. I was going to make a few notes being I was on television. One of them was to say, "I'm Billy, I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date's November the 9th of '89, and the others, don't be cussing you in church and on television." So, but the part about being an alcoholic and being able to get sober those years ago is really neat. The speaker that introduced me, when you hear those nice words said about you, it makes you want to live up to them. I'm almost like the lady at a funeral. The preacher went on and on and on and on about what a wonderful man was in that casket down there. Finally, she just got up and went down there and looked in there. She went back and sat down. Her friend said, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm supposed to be Joe's funeral, and them things he was saying sure didn't remind me of Joe's." So a lot of times we get a lot of kind words said about us, and we stand up and talk about this, that, and the other, but we all are just human. We all make mistakes. And I still have a lot of trouble in some areas. I know a lot about alcoholism. I've been in it since my first conscious thoughts. My daddy was a drunk, mean drunk. He beat on my mama and slung us around, and it was real difficult. He died when I was 14, and she married another mean drunk. Bless her heart. She was on my resentment list, but it didn't take long after I got sober and come to my senses to realize that, bless her heart, she did the best she could, and she did enough suffering without me having any type of resentment against her. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not going to spend much time on drugs, but I did spend a lot of time on drugs when I was out there. But I'm not going to talk about that. I did whatever come to star, and to make me feel different than the way I felt. I turned 16. I was a problem child at school, that's for sure. Always acting out. I heard a speaker from Rockingham say one time they didn't have riddling, they had paddling. And I got beat unmerciful. It was almost like a badge of honor. Duh. I got whipped right and left, and like that was something cool. Whoa. I remember being in high school walking down the hall, and somebody said, "That Billy Dunn's a crazy SOB." And I just swelled with pride. I did. I am somebody. I wanted to feel okay. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be brave. I didn't want to be so afraid and feel so stinking weird. And less than and all those things. Everybody that I've heard, of y'all that I heard speak, seemed like every day when I went to school, I'd look in that mirror and I didn't like what I saw. And I'd try to fix and try to mess, and always left that mirror disappointed. I got to go in there amongst them people looking like this. Hopefully none of y'all ever went through any of that, but it's rough. And trying to be smart, wanting to be smart, entering into conversations and stuff. I still do this a lot when I don't know what I'm talking about. And but I really felt, as Poor Boy Rice, if you hadn't ever heard him speak, I recommend getting a tape by him. He said he felt poor, pitiful, and put upon. And I sure did too. I blamed everything, any mistake or misfortune or shortcoming or anything else on my childhood. If you'd been through what I'd been through, you'd be just like me. And I rode that till I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. It did have some effect, no doubt about it. Up until you wake up. But when you have that awakening as a result of these steps, you don't get to use that no more. I kind of miss it. I mean, it come in handy when you really mess up bad to be able to say, it's not my fault. But it is, I am responsible today. And once you come in here and you do these steps and you wake up, those old excuses had to fall by the wayside if you're going to stay here. I come out of high school. I did graduate high school. I went to Sand Hills over here. I don't know which way to point, but I went to Sand Hills over here for a year. But I'd already started drinking daily by the time I got here. The main reason I went was because Daddy had died, and I got a check for him being dead to keep going to school. So, and it was $165 a month back then. Man, I was at the big time. Mama let me keep that check too. So I got, Budweiser was $6 a case. Gas was about 50 cents a gallon. I could ride and drink the whole month on $165. I mean, really, but of course I quit. I didn't stay with it. Never did know what my major was going to be. I just went to classes, tried to figure out some easier classes to keep getting that check. Never tried to learn nothing. I had opportunity. Mama would have helped me. She didn't have no money, but she had enough to help me some, and if I had had the desire to learn, the opportunity was there, but I was already gone by the time I got there. I mean, I was swept off my feet by alcohol. I found some relief. And buddy, you'll fight the devil himself to get another drink if it'll make you feel better. I done found what I was looking for. Kind of like a friend of mine said, if he won the lottery, somebody tried to get him to invest. He said, I ain't investing in nothing. I done hit. It's kind of the way I felt about alcohol. I didn't want to make any changes. Let's go. Let's get together. Let's get high. Let's party. Let's do all these things. Let's be a part of life. You know, I also heard one time where somebody said, I don't think it's in our literature, it was a speaker or somebody that said, people say we're running from life, and the truth is we're running toward life. You know, I wanted to be a part of it. All y'all looked like you fit in so good and was happy and doing good, and now I was all weirded out until I got a buzz going. Then I fit in. Fella said I had to have a drink to apply for a job. He said after I took it, I was too good for it. And we hear jobs like that, we go, normal people, when they hear that, they go, but you get it. You know, too nervous to go apply for it, take a few drinks, go in there and quit. Come up to the desk to make your application, also, I quit. Quit what? You know, you hadn't even started yet, but y'all get my drift. I started doing a little bit of criminal activity and hanging out at poker games, and I couldn't work inside. I couldn't. By the time I hit 20 years old, I couldn't work in a place where you couldn't be drunk, or at least drinking pretty heavy. I remember when I got up in my 20s and was trying to get a real job, some folks told me, said, so-and-so's hiring. And I said this, and I said, well, can you drink? I'd say, you know, I'm in it. I mean, can you drink? And they said, what do you mean, can you drink? I said, can you drink? Can you get by with drinking? They said, no, you can't drink. I said, well, you don't have to get huffy. I'm trying to find a job that I can deal with, you know, but I could not work in people that work their way through the corporate stuff and did all that stuff. And man, there wasn't no way. I said, I'd be falling around up in there. So finally, not finally in the talk, but I knew I had to do something. And I don't want to get into too much of my criminal activity, but I'd sell anything for a profit. And started getting in a lot of trouble in my early 20s. If you're going to be a criminal, you don't need to be a blackout riding around in your car. I mean, you need at least be conscious if you're carrying contraband and stuff around, you know. And I saw by the time I was 27 that I wasn't going to make it as a criminal, so I went back to looking for a job. And a fella told me this guy named Bob Cagle, who poured concrete, was hiring. And I said, "Can you drink?" And they said yes. And I went to work pouring concrete. I'm still doing it. I worked 2 days this week out in that sun. I'm getting a little bit old for it, but I know I'm not going to be able to do it much longer. But I've been doing it for 40 years. And what got me involved in my career is you could drink on the job. And that's the truth. A lot of those guys I went to work with, we were in our 20s when I went to work there, and a lot of them didn't live through the 30s. A lot of them didn't make it through the 40s. And out of maybe the dozen was there when I first got there, we're all about the same age. There's 2 or 3 of them alive. But for the grace of God, I'm out of here. By the time I was getting to, around 30, all the fun and games, I see some of you young folks getting here. I just love it. I love to see it. By the time I was 30, I was older than 30. I'll tell you that. I was sick. I was always sick. Some of the hard stuff came to the county, and I always had a house where anything goes. And I was just real, real sick. Started getting driving. I didn't get to driving drunks, and that is a miracle. I drove legally drunk every day. A .08. I hated when they went to a .08 because I kept a constant 8. I mean, they could stop. They could stop you if you drank much. They could stop you on the way to work before you've had the first drink, and you blow 8. I knew I was in trouble when they done that. But I just lived in a small place up there, and there's not. When I was a teenager, there was only two state patrolmen in the whole county. I'm 68, and now they got a bunch of friends. I mean, and by the time I stopped drinking, there was a bunch more of them too, also. But I just didn't get in much trouble. We stayed in the woods a lot, but you got to come out in the woods to restock. That's where they get you when you come back out of the woods to restock. But I was getting in trouble, penny ante stuff mostly. I got that second. It was only my second driving drunk. Like I said, it's a miracle. But I had to go to assessment. Stayed up all night. Went in there the next morning, wild-eyed as a son of a gun. Sitting around the table. A couple of young folks in there. One of the young fellas blew 21. Of course, I wasn't no old timer then. I was 36, I think it was, but. He blew 21. I didn't blow but 18. They give him the little school. The little school don't cost $150 back then. The big school cost $550. Well, he gave me the big school. I said, wait a minute. Now I had a record. It wasn't as bad. I mean, I'm not saying I was Al Capone or nothing, but I did have a record. And this kid didn't have one. So he blows 21. They go a little easier on him, and I said, wait a minute here. And the guy said, you get what I give you. And I can't imagine me doing that now. I balled up my fist. I hit the table hard as I could. Bam! I said, rubber stamp. By the grace of God, he just ignored me. Because he could have locked me up or, worse yet, sent me to treatment or something. But he didn't do anything. He just ignored me. I was working during those last years, at my worst, I was working with a real good Christian man. He was a really good man who was always trying to encourage me. I was borrowing money from him all the time. We were pouring concrete. I worked hard. And Lord knows the concrete and the sun, when you've been drunk all the time, you talk about sick. I'm 68 years old, and I was sick every single day during my middle to late 30s that I am any day now. I feel better than I did 31 years ago when I got sober, and I was sick every single day. And Robert tried to help me. He really did. He said, Billy, well, you're a good man. He told me that a lot. Now, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to hear it, really. But he said, you're a good man. Won't you just quit? Won't you straighten up? And I'd say things like, well, Robert, I think I do pretty good with it. And he'd say, my God, Billy. And then he started naming off some of the stuff. The last one I remember, I had that driving drunk in my pocket. always trying to talk him into doing illegal stuff like paying me cash, signing me up. I was on him all the time. He should have beat the tar out of me, but he was a good man. He saw something in me I surely didn't see. He kept trying to look after me. I know I ramble around. I'm going to blame it on the old man thing. But he tried to help me. He told me I was a good man. But he would tell me the truth about what was going on with me. I could hear it. I'm going to mention another thing about Robert that helped wake me up, I think. I was always crying about that childhood. And Robert was pretty successful. I mean, he had his quirks, no doubt, because he came up, as I found out. I was crying about my childhood one day. And he said, listen, Billy. He said, my daddy died when we was real young. He was a mean drunk. We didn't get nothing to eat. He'd eat everything on the table and not give us nothing to eat. He said, when he died, my mama would just let us out at an aunt's house and drive off and stay gone for a week. Sometimes the aunt wouldn't let him in there. He said he was 9 years old one time, and he got out of school and he walked up the street, then he walked down the street and didn't have nowhere to go. A tear run down his cheek. I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to use that excuse no more, not up in here. Because I had one run down my cheek too. That was so sad. But it helped me. That, you know what I mean? That kind of knocked a log out of that spiritual log jam I had. I said, well, this man had it worse than me, but he's doing pretty good. The book says we wish we could have what this man has, or that man or this lady has, but we don't think we can do believe everything just the way they do. I'm going to look at the clock. Oh, we got plenty of time. So I'm working for this guy. He's trying to help me. Another day I was out digging a ditch from here to the door over there. Had to be about this wide and about this deep. We was going to lay a pipe across. Pick and shovel, hot. I'm sweating awful. And this old man came out and said, son, what are you doing out here digging this heat? And I give him that spiel about poor, pitiful, and put upon, and I got to work. The next day when I left, he handed me an envelope, told me not to open it until I got home. Of course, I opened it as soon as I got out of sight. But I opened it up, it had $200 in it. I said, what? This is about the same time Robert's telling me, Billy, you're a good man. You can do something with this. And I got home, I called Robert and got the man's number. I said, man, I can't take his money. I said, all that junk I've been telling you. I said, I'm a drunk and a drug addict, pardon me. I said, I'm hurt. I said, you don't need to give me none of your good money. I said, all that crying and moaning I did was just, I didn't know what a pity pot was, but I said, in my own words, that's what it was. He said, me and my wife prayed over this money, and we want you to take it and put it to good use. So, you're trying to think that everybody's mess is better, he thinks they're better than you, and all that garbage that we play in our head, or I played mine. Yeah, I hope y'all didn't. But man, they was knocking rocks out of the dam. I'm telling you, that pent up mess inside of here. So I get this second driving drunk. I have to go see a substance abuse counselor. Her name was Joan Gillis. Joan's dead now. And she asked me the questions, this, that, and the other. And I told her I want to quit. I said, I'm going to quit. And I don't think I'd ever said that with any sincerity. But I said, I'm going to quit. And she said, well, Billy, you may find you have more difficulty quitting than you think. She said, you might want to try AA. I said, they can't help me. I didn't know what it was. But I just lived on the assumption that nothing could help me. I lived on that assumption. I lived on that assumption that I got warped up as a child, I got traumatized, and all these bad breaks that just kept coming my way. I really did live under the assumption that nothing could help me, that I was dealt a bad hand, and that I had to just live till I died, but it wasn't going to be good. Now, that's an awful way to live this life. But if you take another drink, you can get over it. So Joan tells me where the AA meeting is there in Biscoe. Tell me what time and all this, and this is November the 9th of 1989. That's my sobriety date. But I sure didn't have no idea that it was going to be my sobriety day. I went home. My brother lived right down the hill. Though some of the regulars were stopping by my house, and I told them I'd quit. I'd quit. And they laughed. I mean, So I just slid right on down the hill to my brother's house. And after a few days, a few weeks, they told me later they were betting how long would I make it and all this kind of stuff. I would probably bet against me myself. I wasn't sleeping. I didn't go to detox. I sweated to bed wet. Had nightmares and all that stuff. I shook some, but I tell you, after I saw my brother shake and another friend or two of mine shake, my little old shaking don't even count. But I shook a little. I didn't shake, but I couldn't have threaded a needle, that's for sure. But after just a short while of this on my own thing, my mind was turning. It's not meant for me to have anything. It's not meant for me to be happy. I got dealt a bad hand. I got to play it out. Childhood warped me beyond repair. There's nothing can be done for me. And it sure ain't meant for me to be sober. And that was over and over, round and round, and a bunch of other garbage mixed in. And my goodness, I got more and more miserable. And finally, I couldn't tell you the exact date on this, but it had to be a Monday or Wednesday because that's the 2 nights Biscoe meets. I left my house to get drunk. And I mean, I was going just, man, like a baby that hadn't had his bottle, missed 2 or 3 periods of his bottle. I was going to get on that thing. I was going, I needed a drink bad. I tell you the kind of way I needed a drink. I was working up on Wendover Avenue the first day I worked for Robert. And I'm backing up a little. First day I worked for this good man. We were on the way back home up on Wendover and Greensboro going to Star. And I said, stop, let me get a couple of beers. And the guy working with us said, he don't let you drink in his truck. And I'm not going to use profanity, but I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm temporary help. I don't know what that's got to do with anything, but it's the only bullet I had in the gun. And he said, I'd rather you not drink in my car. I said, well, I like working with you, and I think I don't blame you a bit. Just let me out. He said, let you out? I said, yeah, let me out. I needed a drink bad. I'd sweated every bit of it out. I know some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I was going to get out on Wendover Avenue in Greensboro with no way home. He said, well, if you want that bad, go ahead. And them other boys bailed out and got them some too. They'd worked for him a year or two, had drank in his truck. I have a bad influence. But anyway, I leave the house. And because I needed a drink. Now, buddy, I know what it is to need one. I know y'all do. You wouldn't be up in here. You'd be in the JCs or something. You wouldn't be in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I got halfway between Biscoe and Star. Now, I don't know if any of y'all know Old 220 and that area up there or not. You do. But I got halfway between Biscoe and Star and I blacked out. And there's a blackout just like you have if you drink too much. And when I came out of it, I was pulling in the parking lot of that Presbyterian church up there at Biscoe where the AA meeting is. I knew where I was because she told me as soon as I come out of it. I saw where I was at. I'm on television, I need you to write English. But I saw where I was at, and I said, darn. And I looked down there was a car or two there. All that mess going on in my head. I didn't know it was a miracle. I never even thought about God. I never thought about nothing like that. It never crossed my mind. And I said, man, all that garbage was spinning in my head. It's not meant for me to be happy. It's not meant for me to have nothing. I had the terrible childhood. That one always came in. You're warped. You're messed up. There's nothing can be done for you. You're going to have to, I didn't know this. I didn't use this terminology, but you're going to have to medicate. And a powerful thought came in my head, and it was, it's not going to get any better than this. And I'm telling you, I was so tensed up, if somebody come up and hit the side of my pickup, and me not seeing them, I'd still be in the nut house trying to make a basket. I mean, I was so wired up and all messed up. And a powerful thought came in, it's not going to get any better than this. Oh, God. And then another thought came in my head. I know it's from God now. I didn't know it then. Never occurred to me. I said, it can't be no worse down there than it is right here. Man, you think I didn't get, I don't get to brag too much about getting sober. I don't get to say, if he just do what I did, pull up my britches and say he could get sober, I know I got the red carpet. I mean, they take cattle and make that gate narrower and narrower, and he has to go up in the pen. I know God did that for me. I know when somebody asked me to come and do this, I got to go. Whether my wife's mad or whatever the deal is, whether she don't want me to leave that night or whatever, I got to go. And I went down that hill. And I went through that door, and there was 4 or 5 old men that were no older than I am now, about my age. Some of y'all may have known David M., Robert, K.A., anybody that ever went to the West End group would have known some of those guys. R.C. I didn't know what was going on in there. I remember David asked me, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing great. I'm really doing good. How about you? And he put something on me that I've never got to use, but maybe I will someday. He said, so you're doing good, are you? I said, yeah, I'm doing wonderful. I didn't say wonderful, but I said, yeah, I'm doing good. He said, is this your first meeting? I said, yes, sir. He said, most people coming to their first meeting aren't doing quite as good as you are. And I said, probably the most up to that point, at least the most important words I had ever said. I said, I don't know what y'all got here, but I can't stop drinking. And I knew it was the truth. I believe it's the first time I ever knew it. I could not stop drinking. I couldn't believe it. I thought I had it going on. If you saw where I was living and see what I was driving, to think that I had it going on was pure insanity. One of the guys, Sam M., that night after I left, told David, said, surely the ambulance let him out up there. And they, had a little joke about me. Said, surely the ambulance let him out. And I looked pretty good now, but I was looking rough then. I'm 68. I'm not saying I look good, but I look better at 68 than I did at 37, I'll tell you that. I was sick. I was real sick. They said, you need to get a sponsor. I said, who was drunkest the longest? I think that's a good question. I mean, hey. But anyway, Tucker raised his hand. Steve, I reckon Steve might be listening to this. He knew Tucker real well. Tucker said, that'd be me, 44 years. I said, will you be my sponsor? He said, yep. He said, I ain't got no license. I ain't never going to have one. I want to go to a meeting every night. I want you to come get me. Something to that effect. Any other time in my whole life, I'd have said, yeah, right. I mean, sound like a personal problem to me. But you know what? I picked that old man up every single night for 3 years after that night. I got the big boy. I got the miracle. I didn't even know it. I couldn't give God any credit because I didn't even know what was happening. I had no clue what was happening. They said, you have the spiritual experience and the spiritual awakening, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Well, I had a big bang and didn't even know it. I mean, if you go from staggering up in there and never even treatment, no nothing, and go up in there and didn't miss a meeting for 3 years, I got a full-blown miracle. And start talking the talk pretty quick. We went to enough meetings. I'd hear something good at your meeting. I'd go to your meeting. I said, well, I think acceptance is the answer to our problems today. I still want to sound smart. But you know what? You keep repeating that stuff and living that stuff, and it becomes you. I was talking to a lady one time, not in the fellowship, and she told me I was wise. And I said, look, everything that you hear me say, I got it out from AA. I said, I'm just talking stuff that come out of the book. She said, well, it's yours now. I said, all right then. She said, you're telling that to me, and I hadn't heard it. You're sharing your wisdom. I said, well, I'll be done. I kept going. I got married at 5 years sober. I thought she was getting a real bargain. I really did. I said, I remember telling her one time when we were in bad shape, I said, I don't drink, I don't throw away our money, I don't beat on you. And she said, Billy, those are gimmies. You don't get extra credit for those. I went, uh-oh. I thought because Daddy had done that, that was my comparison. That's what I was comparing myself to. I didn't do those things, so. And she said, you don't get extra credit for those, man. I sure don't want to hear that. So that didn't make it. I mean, I can't claim to be no spiritual giant. I done been married and divorced since I got here. Had a lot of, I would never be chosen for a poster child for AA, that's for sure. If we weren't anonymous, they would take my story since I've been sober and spread it out to draw in the new folks, I'm sure. But you know what? I did one thing right. I kept coming to meetings. I worked the steps. And I didn't drink. If you don't drink and you don't die. You know, I'm over 30 years now. And I feel like I see some of you folks that really got in with a sponsor and did well. And you got as much or more emotional sobriety than I have. But I was still taking shortcuts. And one of those shortcuts, you know, is getting a fix without having to pick up a chip. What I mean, you know, through relationships or whatever, work, filling some voids that should have been worked out with the steps and with God. And I had a lot of trouble early on. I know I heard a lady say at a meeting one time, at a spiritual meeting on Sunday morning, Connie, my friend from Archdale, some of y'all may know her, some of you may not, but she said, I feel like God told me in my morning devotion to spend more time with the AA women. I say He told me the same thing. And I had a lot of trouble with those things early on, wanting to feel okay. Like I said, trying to take a shortcut, trying to get. I did it with work. I did it with money, trying to make money, but I didn't drink. I kept going to meetings, and when I'd catch it, I'd go back into the steps. You know, after a divorce, you hit, if you like, I mean, I think most people hit somewhat of a bottom with that one. I went back and did the steps again. Did them with AJ that time. I know everybody knows AJ. I went down in the woods with him and redid the steps, and I grew some more. It's a never-ending thing. This time that Faye was totally incapacitated, no other time in my life, and I'm not proud of this, Lord knows. I don't think I'd have ever been able at any other point in my life to totally put myself aside and look after her. Getting up during the night with the ice and the running, just whatever, and didn't argue. I don't think I could have done it before now. And like I said, that's nothing to whoopee. Some people seem to be able to do that when they're in high school. And didn't have to work steps or do anything else, but it wasn't that way for me. I've been thrown off my program by this COVID. I don't know if it's affected anybody else, but as the introducer said, I was going to the safe house a couple of nights a week, and I was going for myself. I mean, they might have got a little something out of it too, but I was trying to go there. I go to the nursing home. I've been doing that since about 2 years sober, finding some people in the nursing home. It's kind of that amends for being such a dud. The people you're never going to see again. It was suggested to me one time, find somebody to help and keep at it. And we do it in here now. I'm not saying that. But I started going to the nursing home and picking out a couple to visit and spend quality time with that don't have visitors. Ones that's got family in that all the time, they don't need you, you know. But the ones that don't have family. All right, well, you know, in March they shut them down, and the safe house was pretty much shut down. Faye was going to have this surgery, so she didn't want me going around folks without the mask and all. So it's been a hindrance for me. It really has. But I still get to do the deal down at the colony. And every other Sunday I split it with Jeff. And my goodness, anybody knows me doing that chapel service on Sunday morning, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. I mean, I felt like I wanted to do that several years ago. Donnie was still there before Donnie died. And I was already hinting. To Harold, if Donnie ever retired, I'd like to have a shot at it. I didn't say it know exactly what I said. I'd like to try it. I really feel like this would be the place for me. And of course, Donnie was killed in an accident. I think it was 2 years ago, Thanksgiving maybe. But he was such an awesome man. He had more humility in his little finger than I got in my whole body. But Harold asked me to try it, to do it. And I think I've been down there close to 2 years now, a year and a half or something. And Jeff is also there. And I have to prepare so I don't get too slack. You know, I'm going to be going and interacting with the guys in treatment. And I do some fifth steps down there. And we're still trying to keep the Biscoe group alive. There was 4 in there last night. And a relative newcomer said something that, man, it helped me a bunch. He said, we can go to AA and we can spout all the wisdom and stuff we know this book by heart. He said, but unless we talk about some stuff that nobody don't know about us, unless we talk about some stuff that's in here needs getting out, we're not going to do any good. Then he was the new guy, or relatively new. That's why I keep coming back. That hit me. That resonated with me. You can have all the wisdom in the world. You can be introduced and give all kind of accolades. And first thing you know, you pat yourself on your back, you'll knock the breath out of yourself. And you know, I show out enough to where I don't have to get feeling too holy. I have a fit every so often, and one of them you go, uh-oh. I don't think I've arrived quite yet. So it keeps us honest. Humility, if I know the Lord loves me because I do mess up enough to realize that I mess up. I don't have a leg up on a new man. I don't have a leg up on anybody. What I have is the steps. I have the people in the group. I have the people at the colony. I have the people around, and I go to them and I try to give what I have, and then I listen and try to get back some to take with me. And that exchange is what keeps me vibrant, keeps me alive, keeps me wanting to stay sober. If that's staying at home like they're asking to do now, if I stayed there too awful long, I get feeling poor, pitiful, and put upon again. I have to be careful. I need y'all. I need to be intermingled with y'all. So when I'm having some difficulty, y'all going to share with me that you've been having some. Oh, so I'm not the only one, huh? So you have struggled. You have struggles. Alcoholics Anonymous, man, if I'd have only known, I mean, I know you don't get here till it's time, but if I'd have only known, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I had no hope. I had no point. I had no direction. You know, I come out of some terrible tragedy or trouble with the law, this, that, and other, and I just stumbled into the next one like a pinball machine. It's an awful way to live life. I mean, now I know what to do. I'm not saying I'll do it right away. I may have to waller in a little bit, but I've got a home base to come back to. I've got a home group to come back to. I've got a God that I can pray to. And man, this is so much better than drunk. It's so much easier to stay sober than it was to stay drunk. You talk about a full-time job. You think a big mouth like me just go on to about 8:30, but I'm reaching the end of this. You keep talking after you've said what we went in there and prayed a while ago, and they prayed that Steve kind of prayed for me to not be afraid, to not. And I was nervous when I got here. I spoke down here. I think it was 28 years ago. I did such a good job they asked me back. So if I come back, I'll probably have around 60 years sobriety. But I'm gonna close. I'm grateful to be here. I owe everything that I am, and everything I hoped to be really to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no hope. I had no steps to take that would lead to something good. And just by working those steps, now, people ask you to explain how the steps work. I don't know. You just do them and it happens. And I'm through.